One eye is 10 feet wide. 1 foot outstretches a human. 1 coil of hair is bigger than a dining table. You could park a bus on his shoulder. He is the largest statue of Buddha in the world and one of the 7 wonders of China. In Sichuan province, the powerful waters of the Dadu, Minjiang, and Qingyi rivers converge near the city of Leshan. The Chinese believe these rivers are protected by a divine being. More than 1,000 years old, it was carved out of the sheer cliff by devoted followers, a task that took more than 90 years. The giant Buddha of Leshan draws more than 2 million people a year to stare up at its magnificence and worship at its colossal feet.
That's what we're waiting in line for, to catch the sights.
好像不可思议的，好像这没有可能这样。
Leshan is a city in the western Chinese province of Sichuan. A cultural center, it's a place where tradition meets the modern world. 500,000 people live here and maintain its identity as an ancient market town, with traditional stalls lining the streets in the older parts of the city. Leshan has 3,000 years of history and has been deeply influenced by Buddhism. Nearby is Mount Imei, one of 4 sacred Buddhist peaks in China, and the location for over 100 temples and ancient religious structures. For Buddhists, it's long been a pilgrimage site. For tourists, it's a popular trek that allows people to experience the natural and man-made beauty along the mountain slopes. All along the awe-inspiring journey are ancient relics that tell the story of Chinese Buddhism.
我想为大家仔细讲解一下这个地方，因为这个大佛，而我们看到这个景点的话，叫做兜率宫释迦牟尼佛祖的继承人，我们说他是未来佛祖，也是3次佛。Where the cliffs are too steep for buildings, statues and Buddhist carvings decorate the trail. Figures dug into the rocks hundreds of years ago give a glimpse into the area's long history as a holy destination. Leading down a sacred cliff is a perilous ancient stairway carved into the rocks. Known as the 9-turn plank road, the stairs hug the steep rock face and take people on a winding route to the foot of the most impressive sight of all. And it's here that visitors get to do the one thing they come for: hugging the Buddha's leg. There's an old Chinese saying, to hug the Buddha's leg at the last minute, which describes people who only wait until a crisis looms to show their devotion. Judging from the flocks of people hugging the statue's leg, it seems like there's a whole host of last-minute prayers this Buddha has to answer.
在我们佛教实践上
We Buddhists believe in the Buddhas of the 3 eras:
过去、现在、未来。
the past, the present, and the future. The future Buddha is Maitreya. During the Tang Dynasty, most of the people worship the Maitreya Buddha.
Worship of the Maitreya Buddha reached its peak during the golden era of Chinese Buddhism, between the 7th and 10th centuries. It was during this time that the giant Buddha of Leshan was built. People believed in Maitreya's coming at some point in the distant future to bring enlightenment and harmony to the world. To those pilgrims who clamber around this giant edifice, each positive step they take today is a step closer to the paradise that Maitreya promises.
因为到乐山大佛景区，
There are two types of people who come to visit the Leshan Buddha. One group visits this place because they are attracted to the rich Chinese historical heritage. The other group is Buddhists who come for religious purposes. They are amazed by how people from the olden days were able to build such a magnificent sculpture. They are filled with awe and wonder when they come here.
China is famous for massive projects built by the pure weight of numbers, incredible ingenuity, and awe-inspiring dedication. Whether it's giving their lives to build the world's biggest man-made structure or constructing a modern wonder like the Beijing Olympic Stadium, China has never failed to impress. The world's biggest Buddha is a wonder amongst wonders.
Like many of China's big, huge historical relics and cultural relics, they use a lot of human labor. So I think China has the power to do a lot of things if they unite people.
The statue has stood on the riverbanks watching over the turbulent waters for over a millennium. Life in Leshan has always revolved around the river and its traffic, carrying people and goods to and from the ancient market town. Even today, there are strong ties with the waterways. But there's been one change. The river is safer than it used to be. The waters were once notoriously treacherous, capsizing many boats and taking lives. Some people even believed that the cause of such tragedies was an evil river monster that lurked beneath the surface. According to legend, the waters only became calm when the Buddha was built. The man responsible for the creation of this statue was a monk named Master Haitong. Master Haitong was a compassionate and devoted Buddhist monk of the early 8th century, an abbot of the Lingyun Monastery of Leshan. He was greatly troubled by the constant loss of lives his community suffered as a result of the dangerous river. He wanted to find a permanent, surefire way to protect his people from the treacherous currents, and came up with a wildly ambitious plan. He decided to build a giant Buddha statue that would overlook and bless the most deadly parts of the waters. When a greedy official got wind of the large amount of money the monk had collected for the project, he tried to threaten Master Haitong into giving up his stash. But Master Haitong didn't bat an eye at the official's bullying ways. In fact, he declared he'd rather gouge out his own eyes than give up the money he'd raised to help the people. The official thought the monk was bluffing, but he was wrong.
The official ran off with a scream of fear. Master Haitong won a lot of admiration from people who heard about his determination. The visitors who come here and learn about his story are all deeply humbled and touched by his commitment to the project.
It's said that the rocks dislodged from the cliff during the building of the statue plunged into the river and tamed the currents. Master Haitong had picked the spot with great care. It had to be one that overlooked the most dangerous part of the water, where the currents of the three rivers had claimed their victims. The statue also had to face west, towards the Buddhist paradise. In addition to occupying the perfect location, the gigantic carving also had to live up to traditional images of the Buddha Maitreya. He is typically portrayed seated, with both feet on the ground, a sign he has yet to ascend to his throne. His ears are long, a mark of extraordinary perception. His eyes are half open in a serene, meditative gaze, and the small dot between his eyes represents the third eye, a symbol of spiritual awakening. Worshippers see him as a symbol of hope for a brighter future. The statue is a work of epic proportions. From head to toe, the Buddha is the length of a Boeing 747. A giraffe could fit in his ear. 50 soldiers could stand in rank across his lap. The Statue of Liberty only reaches up to his shoulder. And even Yao Ming, the Chinese basketball star, is shorter than his finger. Carving a 232-foot statue out of a sheer cliff face would be a daunting enough task today. But 1,300 years ago, there were no cranes and no bulldozers. Master Haitong and his team of devotees and monks used hammers and chisels to shape the Buddha out of the rock, one knock at a time. The statue itself is a work of art that's in near perfect proportion. How they managed such a colossal feat is still a mystery. There would have been no way for the builders to judge their progress as they carved, except on a boat looking back from the treacherous river. During Master Haitong's lifetime, the carvers had only finished the Buddha's head. After he passed away, 2 of his disciples carried on his legacy. It took 90 years of devotion to finally finish the giant Buddha. During the carving of the Buddha, the builders erected scaffolding. They kept the structure up after the statue was completed and used it to form the basis of a giant wooden covering to protect the statue from the elements.
The Leshan Buddha was built during the Tang Dynasty. At that time, they'd already thought about how adverse weather conditions would damage the Buddha. That's why, after the construction was complete, they used a 7-tiered pagoda to cover the Buddha from head to toe.
The pagoda collapsed after 400 years, but today, traces of it remain all along the cliff. Around the statue there are holes where it's believed that wooden beams were hammered in to hold the pagoda in place. Without this protection, the Buddha was exposed to the corrosive impact of the wind and rain.
The Leshan Buddha is connected to the mountain. Not only that, here in Sichuan province, where the statue is located, the air is warm and there's a lot of humidity. In the Shan, the problem of water seepage is really serious.
The Buddha has to withstand at least 3 feet of rainfall a year, and in this part of China, there's an average humidity of 82%. The highly porous sandstone cliff retains moisture, and plants take root easily in the cracks. Realizing the statue would outlast its wooden covering, the builders created an elaborate built-in drainage system that channeled rainwater away from the statue's surface.
The ancient builders approached the protection issue holistically ever since the beginning. They dug drainage channels at the mountain's head, neck and waist to lessen the water seepage from the mountain.
The Leshan Buddha's drainage system is an engineering marvel in its own right. The scale, ingenuity, and precision speak for themselves. The system begins on the coils on the Buddha's head, where gutters direct rainwater down and around the head into 2 large holes behind his ears. The holes are connected behind the statue and drain the water deep into the ground, away from the statue's surface. Rain that hits the statue below the neck flows into the drainage system in the folds of the Buddha's robes, which also act as gutters. They funnel the water out to the side of the statue's waist, where it gets absorbed into the rocks. This hidden drainage system is the secret to the Buddha's continuing existence, and a testament to the skills and imagination of the builders and engineers.
作为一个中国人呢，对乐山大佛当然是感到非常的自豪的，因为在几千年前没有任何工具的时候，我们的古人可以开凿出这样一个大佛。
The giant Buddha of Leshan has been well looked after, an example of mass devotion and collective care over many years, with each succeeding generation taking on the responsibility. It's been an uphill struggle, particularly during modern times when the statue has come under heavy attack. Man-made pollution is something the ancient builders were not prepared for. Like many other parts of the planet, rapid economic development in China has taken place at a high cost to the environment. Sichuan province, home to the Leshan Buddha, is rich in natural resources, but its air and its water have suffered as a result of the heavy industries that have multiplied in recent decades. In the 1990s, the province became notorious for acid rain caused by the high sulfur content pouring from the coal-fired factories. It's affected 80% of the cities in Sichuan, but the giant Buddha of Leshan is its most famous victim. The acid rain stained the Buddha's face, making it look like tears were streaming down his cheeks.
The Leshan Buddha is an important world cultural and natural heritage site, and we take our responsibility of conserving it very seriously. In recent years, the local government has been investing heavily to protect the statue, enhancing its environment.
The local government has taken measures to control pollution in nearby areas and along the Minjiang River by relocating heavy industries, closing down pathways, and building a platform at the base of the statue. Although modern times pose a whole new set of problems to the statue, it's actually modern technology that holds the key to preserving its ancient wonder.
This is a system that scans the entire Buddha with lasers to create a digital replica of the statue. It fixes points of reference on the Buddha's body. And from those we put together the raw data that will help form the basis for future preservation of the Buddha.
Scans of the Buddha are planned for once every few years to track changes in the statue's health. That way, repairs and protection plans can be put in place to treat the most vulnerable areas. The scans also include the rock carvings around the statue, small caves that contain intricate Buddhist sculptures. Studying their appearance also helps to figure out how strong the rock is at different points in the Buddha's foundation.
Through building a database with this system, we provide experts with raw data, which we can analyze for better understanding of the extent of the statue's erosion and what the environment does to it. Our aim is to preserve the historical characteristics of the Leshan Buddha.
Due to the statue's incredible size, maintaining its appearance is a full-time job, involving coordination and the dedication of many people, not to mention many safety ropes. However, only 6 years since a multi-million-dollar facelift took place, the statue is again showing serious signs of damage. Although nearby factories have been shut down, smokestacks from further away continue to pollute the air. Now, experts believe that the Buddha's nose and ears may eventually fall off from the corrosive and endless onslaught of acid rain. Experts are battling against time and the elements to maintain the magnificence of the statue, desperate to ensure what we see today and in the future does justice to the creator's vision.
Again, I think this is a great piece of art and something that should be looked at with awe, because for them to achieve such heights with even the toes and the intricacy and the grandness of this is really inspiring, and really it makes you wonder and appreciate how much we have today and everything that the technology and how far it has gone. It just makes you stand back and look in awe.
This miracle has inspired poets and writers throughout the ages. Characters carved into the cliff call it Poetry City. Some of the most celebrated poems from Chinese literature sing the statue's praises.
Hundreds of meters high is the gold giant Buddha, standing straight into the sky. As high as the mountain is the statue pavilion. Clear is the moon waiting to be touched is the extraordinary power I realized after seeing the statue with a body of gold.
乐山大佛1996年12月6日被
On 6 December 1996, the Leshan Buddha was listed by UNESCO as a World Cultural and Natural Heritage Site.
教科文组织的确认，所以说乐山大
The
佛
Leshan Buddha is a remarkable work of ancient sculpture.
古代的建筑始祖。
A symbol of hope for the future and a reminder of the power of devotion, the giant Buddha of Leshan stands tall as a wonder of China. Each day, the statue welcomes crowds of worshippers drawn to its compassionate gaze, as well as curious tourists eager to be awestruck by this colossus. But after bringing safety and prosperity to Leshan by taming the river and watching over the flowing currents for over a millennium, it's now fighting for its own survival. The rapid development that's lifted so many Chinese out of poverty has ironically put their guardian saint in grave danger. So in future, when the tourists hug the Buddha's leg to avert a crisis, it's to be hoped they've got the survival of this great cultural treasure in mind.